God bless America. Hello, everybody. I am the Talk Radio Protege. This is the Protege program. Thank you so much for joining me on this Wednesday. I hope you're all having a great day and looking forward to the weekend. Today, we're talking about the Watergate comparisons, parallel drawings to Russiagate, because there's been rumors circulating that Mueller is going to be fired. Trump has amped up his rhetoric against the special counsel, and Mueller, by name, he attacked for the first time just recently, and everyone on the left is messing themselves from the excitement of the prospect that Trump might fire Mueller, allowing them to draw all of the parallels to Watergate and point all of the fingers and say, look, Trump's doing exactly what Nixon did, and we all know how bad Richard Nixon was, so Trump is automatically bad, although Trump was bad before we could call him Richard Nixon. Yeah, it's a whole Watergate thing. Everybody on the left has a the word escapes me. Fill in the blank. The left loves Watergate, especially when they can point it at Republicans to destroy presidents. So the Daily Beast says that Russiagate is worse than Watergate. They invoke the climate of 1973's talking about Republicans and appointees seriously discussing impeachment of Richard Nixon. And with all this talk about Watergate, I decided I wanted to do a little bit of research. Not that I had time to do a ton of research, but I went to the Wikipedia page and I read through a bunch of this as much of this information as I could, to try and see how Russiagate stacks up next to Watergate. Now, the first thing that I think is important to talk about, the big deal in the Watergate scandal. June 17th, 1972, the Democrat National Committee was broken into, and the people that broke into the DNC headquarters were arrested that day. They were arrested in the act of breaking into and trying to wiretap DNC phones at the Watergate complex. The first point of comparison between Russiagate and Watergate is that are there perps and were they caught red-handed? Because in Watergate they were. The perpetrators, as I've said multiple times now, were caught red-handed. They had ties to the Nixon re-election campaign. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, you have Russiagate. The event that launched the Russiagate scandal was an opposition research dossier that it has been revealed to be funded by the Hillary Clinton campaign with only 2 degrees of separation. There have been no perps arrested and caught red-handed. There have been no perps even accused yet of colluding with Russia. Paul Manafort was indicted for lying or improperly filling out a form. Michael Flynn was indicted for lying to the FBI after the fact. They decided after the interview that he had lied, and they indicted him for that, destroyed his life over that. The next thing that I think is important to talk about when it comes to Watergate is cooperation. As you can see in this paragraph, the Nixon administration resisted the probes of the investigation into the Watergate scandal. The Nixon administration did very little to cooperate with the special counsel. They even destroyed evidence. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, in Russiagate, no one, I repeat, no one from the Trump team is even resisting Mueller's probe. Everyone is cooperating. Everybody is offering their fullest cooperation. The only place where there might be some resistance, I believe, would be, the last I heard, Mueller was requesting documents from the Trump organization from before the election. Not sure why that's relevant, but that could be why the Trump organization is resisting that probe just a little bit. Now, The next thing that's important to talk about is the money trail. If we scroll down here, we read on June 19th, 1972, this is 2 days after the Watergate event had taken place, the press reported that one of the Watergate burglars was a Republican Party security aide. If you continue to read through these paragraphs, you'll read about donations that were given to the burglars and different people to hush up about the events or do different things. There's a money trail that led from the Nixon campaign to the burglars. That's on the Watergate hand. On the Russiagate hand, the money trail from the evidence, which would be the dossier, the launching evidence, in the case of Watergate, were the perps being arrested, caught red-handed. They had a money trail leading from them to the Nixon campaign. In Russiagate, the launching evidence is the dossier, and the money trail from the dossier does not go to the Trump campaign, it goes to the Hillary Rodham Clinton campaign. That is a huge departure from the Watergate comparison. And then we have the evidence that we could talk about. Let's see. Where did I see the paragraph that talked about the evidence? I believe it's down here under the role of the media. Okay, here we go. Nixon evidence in the form of Nixon's conversations in late March and April of 1973 revealed that not only did he know he needed to remove Hadelman, I think these are the burglars, to gain distance from them, but he had to do so in a way that would least likely incriminate him and his presidency. So there was evidence that emerged that implicated Nixon in the cover-up of the break-in. Covering up the ties between the burglars and his campaign. That's on the Watergate hand. On the Watergate hand, you have evidence in the form of conversations that President Nixon was involved in that implicated him in the cover-up of the crime of breaking into the DNC. That's on the Watergate hand. On the Russiagate hand, there is no evidence that implicates the president in colluding with the Russian government. There is no evidence that the president had any conversations with anyone that talked about colluding with the Russian government. There's no evidence that Trump has had any conversations about covering up collusion with the Russian government. Sure, Trump has talked about firing Mueller, but he's always maintained that the Russia investigation is a witch hunt. That he never did anything. There's never been any evidence that there was Russian collusion between the Trump administration and Russia. Therefore, there's no crime to cover up. The cover-up that the media wants you to think exists is that Trump is trying to shut down the special counsel investigation because they're getting too close to the collusion, even though we have no evidence of the collusion. In the case of the Watergate scandal, there was evidence that wrongdoing had occurred in the break-in of Watergate, and there was a cover-up underway by the administration. On the Russian collusion hand, there is no evidence that Russian collusion took place. There's no evidence that implicates the president in Russian collusion. Therefore, there is no cover-up that is taking place, and there will never be any evidence that implicates the president in a cover-up. So when the Daily Beast writer says that this is going to be worse than Watergate, I have to say, you're dead wrong, sir. I think it's interesting that on the one hand, you have a guy that's writing saying that Russiagate is worse than Watergate, but on the other hand, you have a guy that's saying the special counsel should have never been appointed in the first place. This is from Alan Dershowitz, and I don't know a lot about the man. If I recall correctly, he worked for the Bill Clinton impeachment defense team, so he was on Clinton's side during the Lewinsky scandal. And this guy says that President Trump is right in saying that a special counsel should never have been appointed to investigate the Russian connection. There was no evidence any crime committed by the Trump administration, but there was plenty of evidence that Russian operatives had tried to interfere with the 2016 presidential election. Now, as a brief aside, there are very few people at this point that are denying that the Russians didn't at least try to mess with the American political system in the 2016 election. In fact, from a certain perspective, from thinking about it in this way, that the Russians wanted to disrupt American democracy, you could say they succeeded, because for months after the election, there were people saying that Trump was not their president. There were movements in place to oust a duly elected president of the United States of America. And to this day, we have up to half of the electorate that believes that Trump cheated in getting into the presidency. The Russians were wildly successful in destabilizing democracy in the United States of America. In that sense, they did interfere with the U.S. elections because they were trying to destabilize the winner. I don't have sources for you here, but I've seen it in different places. It's been talked about in different places that you can watch the Russians' propaganda campaign unfold as they tried to support Trump, thinking that Hillary was going to win, and then as soon as Trump won, a lot of support from the Russian quote-unquote trolls diversified into support for Hillary and support for Trump, trying again to destabilize American democracy, not necessarily to support a single candidate. And that, my friends and fellow Americans, is why I say that the Russiagate scandal is not even in the same ballpark as Watergate. If you want something that is in the same ballpark as Watergate, look into the names Peter Strzok, spelled with a Z somewhere, and Lisa Page, and Andrew McCarthy, and the FBI seeking to impede and perhaps oust a duly elected president of the United States of America. That, my friends, is a Watergate-level scandal. That's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did enjoy, leave a like, hit subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so that you don't miss a single video. Come back tomorrow. I'll be doing a brand new video. Friday, I will not be doing a new news of the day video. We will be revisiting the gun control debate. It is still raging on. At this point, the Parkland shooting has ignited a longer gun control debate than the Vegas shooting, and I intend to be covering it, adamantly defending the rights of Americans to keep and bear arms, to defend themselves, to preserve life. I'll be there fighting that battle. I hope that you will join me. Hit subscribe if you want to show your support. Come back next time for the next video. Until then, good night and God bless.